What are you doing?
Looking at stuff.
Oh,
What are you doing?
making a video.
Oh, hello. We're back.
Hey, everybody. So we got this 2023 ES model in. On our KRX review video, we got a lot of questions about whether we thought this model was worth the money. And we're gonna go over it, do a little review for you guys. I haven't driven it at all. Steve did a little bit around the yard. It was here for some shock work. He lost what, like 4 inches of
You had
ride height?
9 inches of ground clearance. It's supposed to be 14.
Yeah,
It was pretty low.
Yeah.
It's pretty low.
yeah. So
But I don't have a lot of driving time. I just went around the yard. He didn't want everything changed. There's no tuning done. There's no new springs done.
Yeah.
He just saw the video showing that you don't need to change all that to get your ride height back. You just need the shocks installed correctly and built correctly without foam in them and the piston, the IFP leaking. And so I did all that and changed the caps so you can put nitrogen in them correctly and stuff. So
yeah.
just a very basic build.
Yeah, and I think you said you found that on this model, the tender springs were actually stiffer on it as opposed to the other. Like we have a special edition.
So every Cowie that I bring in the shop, I put the springs on the scales and I weigh them because one of the biggest things on the internet, people keep saying, they argue for days, I don't know why they argue, but they do, is that, oh, these springs get tired over time depending on how many miles you have on your machine. Well, this is a 23 and it has 1,980 kilometers, which is probably like 1,200 miles or something around there, 1,300 miles for Americans. Almost 2,000 kilometers if you're in Canada. And the main springs are the same as the special edition, but the top tenders were actually stiffer than what's on the special edition. And the only reason I believe that to be is because these are actually internal bypass shocks.
They're very different.
They're a little bit different than the regular Cowies. And I think from our research, only the ES comes with the bypass shocks.
Yeah,
all the other ones are just the 2.5 inch shocks.
Yeah, they're the live valve bypass, so they're pretty fancy.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of things. And we're gonna show you, this also has, what was it called, a TFT display in it, which is only available on these ESF models. So we're gonna go through that and show you how the TFT actually shows you what's going on with the shocks, and show you how to kind of play with that TFT display as well. And yeah, I think that's the only other thing this comes with that's different than the other models is the bumpers and the roof. So
yeah, this one has cameras front and back, but I don't know if he added that or if it came with it.
Yeah.
But I guess we could just start with the suspension side of things and then move the camera around to show you the dash inside and talk about the dash. But other than that, everything about this is the same as all the other Cowies. But there are a lot of debates online about whether you should spend the extra cash to get the ES model for the suspension. And we just looked on Cowie's website and the price difference was like $800 from the special edition to this.
Yeah.
So this one you don't get the stereo that the special edition comes with, but you get the live valve. And I didn't know, I just learned this by checking the website. I didn't know that the live valve was also internal bypass. I knew this one was, but I thought the older models were just live valve, but they're all internal bypass. I'm on the fence about what I think about it because I have very little seat time on it. I think they could use a lot of tuning to really dial them in. This one doesn't have any tuning. It's just the ride height is brought back. And I only went around the yard a little bit, but we can bring the camera over here and talk about this and get this image we've got drawn and show that. It's arts and crafts time.
Explain to me how a bypass shock works, please.
This is my masterpiece. I went to art class. Imagine this is the chrome shaft on the shock, and that's the body and the piston. Dixie likes it. So this is all your valving and your piston. There's a shock body inside the main shock body that you see. So it's basically 2 shocks in one. And in the KRXs, there's 3 bypass ports, and they're about 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch higher than each other. Each one cascades up. So you have to imagine, as this piston moves up, and it's pushing on the oil. When it's below these 3 ports, it's allowing some of the oil to go out this port, down and around between these 2 shock bodies, and there's just a whole bunch of ports at the very bottom, and it comes back up the bottom side. So it's not forcing the oil to bend all these shims on your shim stack, it's bypassing, and it's just going through this cavity on between the 2 shock bodies. Once this piston is up here above these ports, then you're solely relying on the valving on this stack and the valving on your bridge going over to your reservoir here, which has your 2 electrical wires for your 12 volts because it's live valve.
Yep.
So there's no clicker, it's electronic. So basically, the reason that you would put these in is when the piston is down here at ride height, these will help with small chatter bumps. You're not forcing the oil through this piston, so you're creating a ton of free bleed on the low speed compression for the oil to pass through the 2 bodies and around this piston. And then when it gets beyond those, say you hit a big jump or a big bump going through a ditch or something, then you're forcing the oil to go through here, and these are ignored because this is above those, and that's gonna stiffen it up a ton. I don't have enough experience to say if I like where these locations are, and you can adjust these ports, you can adjust this valving, you can adjust it all, but I only drove this a little bit. Compared to our machine, I really like the tune in ours, so I'm not sure to say whether it's
hard
worth
to
it or
compare
not.
because we don't have stock to stock, right?
Yeah, we don't.
Now, I know we've covered it in other videos, but for sake again, how does this live valve work? Because I think personally the name live valve is a little misleading.
Yeah.
Because it's not really like the valving that's changing, right?
It's the bridge port. So the live valve is the exact same as if you were to turn the clicker on a regular shock. You can turn it clockwise to stiffen it up or counterclockwise to soften it, except it's doing it at something like 200 times a millisecond.
Ooh.
It's closing and opening electronically with voltage on that reservoir. There's just a little Deutsch connector with a positive and negative. It's putting 12 volt, 0 to 12 volts. It's metering it. So one end of the spectrum is really stiff. We'll just say that that's 0 volts. And then really soft, we'll say is 12 volts. And it's a scale. So instead of getting out and turning your clickers all the time as the terrain is changing, this thing has sensors. There's a yaw pitch sensor, there's a steering sensor, a brake sensor, and as you're driving around, that voltage is fluctuating or changing within that spectrum from 0 to 12, which would be the same as closing and opening your clickers manually to slow down or speed up or make it easier for the oil to go from the shock body into the shock reservoir, and back and forth, vice versa.
Okay.
It's not changing the valving in the shock itself, even though it's live valve. It's a live metering valve in the bridge of the shock, which is between the reservoir and the shock body. There's a big electric
Yeah, you got to
servo
take the
motor.
hood off to actually see it here.
But that's what it's doing. It's super quick, it's always changing, and it has a couple sensors to feedback. Maybe depending on the riding conditions, that's awesome.
It could be.
I think I'd need to spend a couple days driving one to say, you know what, I don't think I'd ever go back to regular clickers, but I know on our machines, I've got the tune where we never touch the clickers.
No, I don't
it's
think we ever
smooth
have.
on the small trails, and we can go huck it off a big jump with the same clicker positions.
Yeah.
They don't bottom out, they soak it up. It's everyone that gets in it, they love it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's needed or not, but maybe if you never wanted to get into shock tuning really, that would be the way to go, because you can
Something that's just simple and kind of does its job, right?
Yeah. There is still the 3-position clicker as well on the dash.
Yeah, you gotta
normal,
know
firm.
a bit to be an operator with it. You gotta know kind of when you would use firm, when you would use soft in order to get the most out of the shocks.
Well, yeah, like I think normal would be just normal riding, and then soft would be really slow, technical rock crawling or trail riding where you want to just really cloud soft. And then firm is if you're trying to race your buddies and you really want to stiffen it up and it's just going to get rid of the body roll a little bit, and you'll feel a little more of the chop and chatter and stuff, but that'd be pretty much it. It's pretty simple.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I hope that I answered any of your questions if you had some. So though that's the shocks in a nutshell. I guess we'll go over the cool display this thing has now. So
it's focusing a lot better, so that's
yeah,
nice.
I think it's a good one. So it's set up a little bit different. It's pretty cool. You got
I think this needs to go here.
okay. You got
the warning screen. There you go.
yeah. So this is your screen, and it's if you have a KRX, you know this is a black and white on any other model. Very limited options of what you can do on this. And with those, you can also get a center console unit, which is what Steve has, that looks kind of like this, but it's over here. Anyways, this is how you control it. You got some up-down buttons over here, and then select and return. So if I go to return and I click that, it takes you to the main menu. And then you use your up and down. So he's got his cameras integrated in here. You can see that's the front camera, and then that's the rear camera. It is super slick. And then we can go back, and you can have your audio in here. So he doesn't have a stereo, but if you did, you could integrate it in this. And then this is your suspension screen. So right now it's currently on. This is your switch for changing the suspension. You've got your soft, medium, and firm here. So if I turn that, it changes this. That is your soft, and that is your medium, and that is your firm.
So it's changing the voltage going to the reservoirs on the shocks.
Yes. And as you can see right here, that is your center of gravity. That's what it's showing.
It's the yaw pitch.
That's your yaw pitch.
Sensor.
So if Steve, I'm gonna put this back on soft, I'm gonna have Steve rock it around a little bit, you'll be able to see it move. If the camera doesn't move too much, there you go, yeah. You'll see it move. So it'll show you kind of where you're at there.
So when you turn left and go around a corner and that little ball is gonna kind of roll to the right, it's gonna change the voltage on the outside shocks and stiffen them up to kind of counter that body roll. And vice versa. If you hit the brakes, it's going to change the voltage on the front. If you hit the gas, it's going to change it on the back. So wherever that little ball's moving, and then it also has, I think, a steering angle sensor input and a couple others. But it uses all of those as data to change the voltage going to the shocks.
Yeah, so is its goal more or less to kind of keep you, like, the rubber on the ground?
Let's try to keep it the most predictable, planted, comfortable ride.
Okay, okay.
With a computer.
With a computer, yeah. So that's that. And then, was there anything else? If we go back, return, vehicle information, you have all your information in here, which is sweet. Click into that and you can see the mileage, trip, all that. I know Steve's will have him, it'll tell you when you need like an oil change and stuff too, right?
Yeah, it'll do check engine codes, it'll oil change, yearly, monthly maintenance, it has a bunch. I have GPS in mine.
Yeah.
It has a bunch more things. I have a in kilometer gauge. It shows like a picture of a side-by-side and shows you when you're on the hill how steep it is and stuff.
Yeah. So this might do that. We haven't really played with it too much, but it shows you all of that stuff. And if you go back, settings, that's probably just more stuff. But yeah, I love this. I think this is so slick and so intuitive, and I think it should be in everything.
Except the buttons, we said before we had the camera, we were going over this to learn it because we don't have this in our machine. And the buttons they're kind of lame on the dash. Like they could make this a touch screen because it's not a touch screen. If people were wondering that, that's something else. This isn't a touch screen. Excuse me. And the buttons could have been mounted on the side or something because ours has buttons on the side.
Yeah.
This one doesn't. They're down there.
But I understand the touch screen thing, but I feel like if you had this as a touch screen, if you got dirt and water and stuff on it, it might screw with it a little bit.
Mine's been fine.
Yeah.
In the middle, like my middle one's all touchscreen.
Yeah, yeah. It could be cool. But I just noticed it also tells you here on the main screen.
Soft, normal,
Soft,
firm.
normal, firm.
Yep.
So that's pretty neat. I think you have it in normal, so that's where I will
And
leave
if
it.
this wrench lights up, that's check engine. And it tells you if you're in two-wheel drive, your fuel, your RPM, what gear you're in.
Yeah, it really has
your belt
everything, right?
temp. If you're in full power mode or low power mode, there's 1967K on the machine.
Yep. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that is
I'm
nice.
wondering if you can put this into like something like our model.
Yeah.
Because I think with the stereo that Kawasaki offers, this would be perfect.
Yeah, I asked the dealer when I was getting my screen, because I saw this on a model in the dealership, if I could put that in, and they told me no, but I'm wondering why and if anyone has, and maybe you guys have seen someone to do that. So if you have, please leave a comment below.
If you've done it, let
Would
us know.
love to buy that and put that on our machine. I think it looks sweet. I like how it's colored too, where ours is just like a white and black. And
It's much more appealing.
yeah, the
to
colors are
eyeballs.
way nicer.
Yeah. So that is a tour of the things that most other models don't have.
Yeah.
If you were wondering.
So yeah, that's pretty much the only differences.
Yep. So what do you think, Stephen? Do you think it's worth it? Now that we know it's only an extra, I think, 800 American, so probably like 12 Canadian?
I don't know. Yeah. I'd have to drive it because I'm pretty happy with how ours drives.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
To need the extra added things. I know for me to rebuild the shocks, it's a lot more effort to service internal bypass shocks. They cost more to service. There's more seals. There's more going on. I have to hook them up to power to be able to open them. So I have to have special tools to get in them.
Yep.
All of that adds up versus just a basic 2.5-inch coilover.
Yeah.
I don't really like how the piston size is 2-inch instead of 2.5 because the two bodies, you have to have a smaller piston.
Yeah.
Pros and cons. I just need to play with them some more to really decide, because I know like on the Can-Am machines, they'll go all the way up to a 3-inch internal bypass just to get the bigger piston in the back. So
Oh, that makes sense.
I'd need more time driving.
Yeah.
But
I
I'm
think,
a very small percentage of people that
yes,
care.
I think if you're just getting into the off-road scene and you want a really like the KRX to begin with is a very predictable, great riding machine out of the box. But I think if you kind of want the top of that class, this would just take you up that extra notch. And I think if you're somewhere where in a day, you're gonna go from dunes to like rock crawling, it could be very beneficial to, on the fly, be able to change it, right? Like a lot of people talk about, I think in the new Pro Rs and stuff, you can like, there's a button and you have like a G-out button.
Oh yeah.
Personally, I don't really know if that's like necessary. I think that's
For
just-
trail riding.
Yeah, well in general, like I think if your machine's tuned well enough.
Yeah, I wouldn't need it. We could hit a big G and we'd be okay.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna put this on the tripod over here. My hand's getting shaky. So yeah, anyway, you guys are all set up again. So yeah, that's where I think it'd be applicable. I think it'd be good for your average Joe who doesn't want to do a ton of tuning and just wants a really good ride. Yeah. Because like you said off the bat, the only problem that a lot of people complain about is the chatter in the shocks or like the really small bumps. People really feel that in the machines. It like shakes them up. Again, we'd have to have a stock machine side by side to be able to compare if this is actually better than like your stock non-bypass shock.
Another really big factor if you have internal bypass shocks is your ride height. Because if this thing sags down, then the piston is going to be beyond some of those or all of those bypass ports, depending on where the holes are in the body.
Yeah.
So then you could actually be riding past the bypass zone on the bump zone. So you're losing the benefits of it anyways. Like this one came in with 9 inches of ground clearance. He was definitely past the bypass zone.
Oh yeah.
But we also scaled this, so it was, I have the numbers. So this thing weighs 2,340 pounds with his gear in the back. He's got a spare, he's got a tire rack, he's got tailgate, pack out box, recovery gear, and it weighs 2,184 pounds without. So it's about 165-ish pounds of gear that he brings, and he's a bigger guy as well. So we got this set up to support all of that weight and himself. So you have to get it so that you're riding in the right zone on the shock. You don't want this thing at 9 inches. But
I don't think you want any of them at 9 inches.
Yeah.
You're losing like 5 inches there. 5 inches is a big deal.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
So yeah, I mean, again, in general, the KRX is a great machine. So I think you're good getting any model.
Yep.
But if you kind of want to just like push it a little bit more, this might be a better option for you.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't have anything else to say because I haven't driven it for a while. So.
No, we haven't gotten the seat time like we have in ours and be able to give like an actual good review. But Theoretically, that's what I think.
Yep.
Yeah. And Kawasaki, put the TFT in everything, please.
Yeah, it's a really cool screen. If you
Yeah.
haven't seen one, check one out in person.
Yeah.
And I'm going to keep digging and see if we can put them in ours. They're
Yeah.
nice. But yeah, tell us what you think. Do you own one of these? Leave a comment below. Let's talk about the differences from the clickers to the live valve. To, well, what year is yours? And how many miles have you got on the shocks before you've serviced them and stuff? Because we do a lot of shocks here, and I see lots of different things coming through the door. So it's interesting. So yeah, leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Really appreciate it. Helps the algorithms and stuff. So yeah, check us out, d3offroad.com. Thanks for watching.
Thumbs up.